Hey, I'm Jake. I make RPG supplements and videos about Pathfinder 2 or PF2. I love PF2. And as a longtime player of D&D, I want to share the things that I find along the way and share them with you in a way that makes them easy to digest and hopefully fun. Today we'll be doing a deep dive into how rituals work, how the Ritualist archetype works, and a deep dive into 1 or 2 rituals for most levels that are available. There are chapters beneath the video to help you navigate to just the rituals discussion if you want. Rituals can be accessed a number of ways: Ritualist archetype, Eldritch Researcher archetype, Thaumaturge feat, or 'cause GM says. Rituals are an interesting part of PF2 in that they are spells that you can perform even if you're not a spellcaster. In essence, they are a set of instructions that you acquire from somewhere. A feat, archetype, or you buy them, maybe. And you follow them exactly, like you're supposed to hold a red candle and then light it and say shimbalading-dong while walking counterclockwise around a circle that you've drawn with pig fat and let the wax drip onto your hand and burn you. Then somebody else picks up a white candle and says cum eis girat argentum et auramen volare and walks clockwise, and they can't let the wax fall on them. This continues for the next 8 hours. Like, this perfectly fits the theme of a Thaumaturge. Like Constantine, when you perform a ritual, it doesn't matter if you know how magic works or not. You just follow directions and do the thing, and it somehow triggers a magical effect. I love it. Then suddenly there's like flowers everywhere, or whatever. This is great. This should be in every system. Okay, so at the ritual's culmination, so after you've done all the things and spent all the time you're supposed to, the person in charge of the ritual, the primary caster, rolls a skill check that the ritual requires. It varies by ritual. Right when this skill check is rolled, the cost of the ritual is paid. Technically, you have to start the ritual with the gold cost in ingredients available at the time, presumably like holy water or healing potions or small animals, human blood, candles, incense, paint, chalk, plants for offerings, beer, or whatever. You can do rituals with beer. Right when the skill check is rolled, all of these items are destroyed as part of the ritual. That's the cost you paid. Assuming the skill check succeeded and you had the right amount of value of stuff at the ritual, then the effect goes off. The effects can be summoning a creature, transforming an object into a permanent animated object pet, making the weather better, reincarnating your friend into a squirrel, or making a giant garden of death made of the most angry veggies that exist. I'll go over details about some of the most useful rituals in a moment, but I want to mention that this feature is incredibly dependent on the GM. Outside of choosing a feat or archetype that gets specific access to rituals, or access to specific rituals, it's up to your GM to determine when and if you find rituals. Cat hair. They also determine if there are some that just don't work in their world, even if you do choose them. And finally, and most difficultly, they can take days of downtime, which has to be permitted by your GM, and it has to be okay with the whole party. So when you first decide that you want to do rituals at some point, talk with your GM and the whole party, out of character and then in character as well. Because you may be able to even include some of them in the rituals as the secondary casters that you often need. And you can also figure out which rituals each of you are going to learn if anyone else is interested in doing so you don't duplicate your choices. Side note, the secondary casters have to roll skill checks that if they succeed, they add bonuses to the main caster's roll. That's usually their only function. This could even mean that your whole party ends up having a very cultist or high magic user vibe, like you're all members of the Order of Hermes or the Golden Dawn. If your GM likes this idea, they can even run with it. Don't do that. Don't eat the camera, it's bad. They can even run with it and make a series of adventures where you're fighting ghosts or demons and have to keep using your ritual powers and other spells and your fighting abilities to put the demons or spirits or even demigods to rest. Like the show Supernatural. That could be a fun campaign if you're all interested in playing that and the GM is game too. Sometimes they're not. They tend to have their own plans and want to see their ideas blossom. I know, I'm one of them. But if I had a whole group who came to me saying that they want to use these rituals, I would abso-freaking-lutely see it as an opportunity to jump on. I mean, how often do you get to awaken animals and plants, step into the ghostly realm, and bind undead to your service? It's freaking cool. Okay, so let's say that you have to sort of wedge rituals into your game session or between sessions. Then you'll pretty much need to plan on taking the Ritualist archetype, because they can reduce the amount of time needed to perform rituals, and you can work around your GM's plot. When I give you a breakdown of rituals here in a minute, I'll take into consideration that someone in the group is going to be a ritualist at the highest possible level at that point, and that they'll be the primary caster, whether that's you or not. That won't start, though, until I go over second level rituals, because the Ritualist archetype begins at level 4. Just like if you're a regular caster, you have access to spells that are roughly half your level. Another general thing to consider, casting a ritual is expensive. For example, Elemental Sentinel allows you to summon an elemental in order to function as a silent alarm for a place. It contacts your mind if you're nearby and if it senses an intruder. At first or second level, the cost for this spell is 15 gold, which is likely all you have at first or second level. And you pay the cost, whether or not it succeeds. The rule for cost under rituals is that you pay the cost when you attempt the primary skill check, not when you succeed at it. Also, you will want to ensure that you have an area to perform the ritual that is devoid of distraction, and you cannot be interrupted. You don't want to be 2 days into a 3-day ritual and you get attacked because you just picked a random cave and the dragon that lives there is coming back now. Something I find interesting about rituals, it's a downtime activity that can be done without taking downtime depending on the ritual and whether or not you have abilities to reduce the time it takes. Since it takes so long and so much money to perform a ritual, I would be careful in choosing your access to rituals and in choosing which ritual to perform at a given time. Some of them, like Fey Abeyance, which harms Fey creatures by ringing iron bells if they come into the area, only lasts a week. So then you have to pay for it again in a week. I kind of love the idea of a character that is just obsessed with unknown and dark magic who only wants to become an adventurer because they want the money to perform the rituals so they can reach power eternal. That's a very greedy, selfish reason to start adventure. Is awesome. Let's talk about a few rituals as examples so you know what you might be getting into and what you could gain from these rituals. First level ritual, Harrowing. It's basically tarot reading. Assuming all checks are successful, you get to re-roll a die roll once within the next month, and the type of roll you get to later re-roll is decided randomly. Either a strike, a fortitude save, a reflex save, a will save, a skill check, or any roll. Obviously that's the best one, but still is random. The ritual caster check is made with fortune-telling lore. It's like a great use for it, it's perfect. You're required to be trained in it only, or occultism, but you have to be expert in it. There are no secondary casters required, it only takes an hour to cast, it affects only one creature, and the cost is 20 gold pieces per character level of the target. Hi, I love you too. Daddy's working right now. It's a minor beneficial effect, but it is beneficial, and you can hold on to it for an entire adventure until the moment is just right. Like, everybody should do this, because it lasts so long. Second level ritual, Animate Object. Assuming all checks are made, you get a permanent object animated as your minion. You can have up to 4. The stats are either in the bestiary or you and your GM can decide on it together. For example, an animated broom is immune to bleed, death effects, disease, doomed, drained, fatigued, healing, mental effects, necromancy, non-lethal attacks, paralyzed, poison, sickened, and unconsciousness. Because it's a broom. Its AC is 16, it has dark vision somehow, it sees with its broom eyes. I don't know. An agile melee attack that does 1d4 bludgeoning and dust. The dust effect allows a fortitude save, or the target has to spend their next action coughing. This is a really cool spell. You just get a pet, and you can choose more powerful ones at later levels too. It requires the primary caster to roll Arcana, which requires expert in Arcana, which obviously Mickey Mouse didn't have. And it requires one secondary caster who can roll Crafting. It takes 1 day to cast, and the cost is hugely variable. The broom is 15 gold, and a 100-foot tall animated statue is 19,500 gold. Oh, and anytime it says the casting time in days, it means an 8-hour block of time during that day. That's what constitutes a day for rituals. The Ritualist archetype at this level 4 character, provides you with a +2 bonus on all primary caster skill checks for rituals. So yeah, not a big impact yet, but any bonus for doing rituals can save you a bunch of money and time, because you pay the cost when you attempt the skill check at the culmination of the ritual, usually at the end. You pay the cost before you know the result of the ritual, so you could pay for the same ritual multiple times if you keep failing the check. 3rd level ritual, Reincarnate. Assuming all checks are made, you target a dead creature and they get a new humanoid body. It's chosen randomly out of all ancestries and heritages that are possible in that region. The GM is supposed to tell you what to roll for. Hopefully they come back with all their hit points, spells, and focus points, but they could fail to return or even get trapped in an unintelligent animal and can't use any of their abilities. In which case you'd probably just kill them again and start over. What? So this requires the primary caster to roll nature, which they have to have at least expert. 2 secondary casters are required and they have to roll occultism or religion. It takes 4 hours to cast and the cost varies greatly. But if they are 8th level and lower, it's 25 gold pieces per the dead guy's level. It goes up a considerable amount if they're higher than 8th level, up to 125 gold pieces per level. The Ritualist archetype at this level 6 character, allows you to act as one of the secondary casters. You attempt the skill check or do whatever that secondary caster would normally have to do, and if the secondary caster is actually the target of the spell, you can't do this. Like, you're trying to hold 2 candles and burning yourself with one and not the other while you run around in circles screaming 2 separate chants at the same time. This makes you look completely insane. But it can make it easier to practice rituals on your own. In seclusion. In the dark. Where no one can hear the whispered eldritch voices but you. Maybe not. Another level 6 option for the Ritualist is Resourceful Ritualist, which allows you to attempt rituals that require a skill proficiency 1 stage higher than you actually have. So a little more access a little earlier. Not bad. 4th level ritual. Simulacrum. 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 Assuming all checks are made, a copy of one living creature is created from snow or ice that has been sculpted in their image. This duplicate is an illusion, and it has the stats of a 4th level creature with no special abilities. It doesn't have any memories of the target, but it can be told about the target by the casters, and it'll learn how to impersonate that creature. It gets a bonus to its deception check to do so. If the creature that was targeted has any special abilities, the simulacrum doesn't get them, but it does have illusionary powers that mimic them. Like, it can look like it's a fire-breathing dragon, but the fire doesn't ever do damage. Depending on how well you roll, it becomes your minion. The primary caster has to roll either Arcana or Occultism, but it has to be master level, and it's a secret check. That means that you won't know if it actually intends to kill you, which is the critical failure result. This requires 3 secondary casters. They each have to roll Crafting, Deception, and another skill depending on what would be rolled to recall knowledge on the target of the spell, that kind of creature. It takes 1 day to cast, a piece of the creature to be copied, and 300 gold pieces. That is a lot cheaper than I thought it would be. Now if you compare this to 5e's Simulacrum, this may seem weak, but the 5e version is actually too powerful. There's a link in the description if you want to know how abusable this is in 5e. It's ridiculous. The ritual system is a very clever solution to keep things balanced. There's some spells that are rituals in PF2 that are very powerful, and in 5e, those same spells are easily abusable, or they're just too powerful overall. I like the system. It works. The Ritualist archetype at this level 8 character, gives you, finally, the most important feat the Ritualist can get, besides a level 14 one, efficient rituals. If a ritual normally requires 1 day to cast, you can cast it in 4 hours. If it takes longer than 1 day, you cast it in half the number of days rounded up. This is the first ability that allows a Ritualist to accommodate the flow of the adventure. Some rituals could be cast after an adventuring day now. It's great. This is the whole reason to take the Ritualist archetype, really. Fifth level ritual. Hero's Feast. The benefits of this spell are pretty variable, but here's the best result if a critical success is the result for the primary caster. Up to 10 people are provided a massive feast, including the guest's childhood comfort foods, modern delicacies, and preferred drinks. Each guest gets these cast on them: neutralize poison, remove disease, and remove fear, with a counteract check based on the primary caster's check. Each guest also heals for 100 hit points and gains 20 temporary hit points for the next 12 hours. They also get +2 versus disease, fear, and poison effects for the next 12 hours. The primary caster check has to be an expert level proficiency for either a nature, religion, or occultism check. It requires one secondary caster who rolls either diplomacy or society. It takes 4 hours to cast and costs 25 gold pieces. That's insanely worth it. Like right before the big bad fight. Totally do that. It's a great ritual for adventurers. The Ritualist archetype at this level, character level 10, is Assured Ritualist, which allows you to change a failed or crit failed roll of a secondary caster into 1 degree of success better. This is good because little pluses matter here. Some of the rituals look like they complete successfully on a crit fail, but it actually hurts you in some way, like summoning a monster to kill you. I'll list a few more abilities from higher levels because they're cool. 6th level ritual, Planar Binding. You can summon an extra planar creature to do something for you. This doesn't give you an actual pet, and that disappoints me kinda. I'd like to have a demonic pet. I come from 3.5, you could do it there. It's really hard, but you can. There are several ways, including a couple of rituals, to get either a construct or an undead as a pet. Why not a demon? Future video. There's no ritualist feat for this level, so no improvement here. 7th level ritual, Word of Recall. Takes a week to cast, then for the next year, 1 time, anyone in your group can speak the command word to allow everybody who was part of the ritual to return to the spot it was cast. That's awesome for getting into some deep shit in an adventure. Just whisk everybody back to safety. The Ritualist archetype at this level, level 14, gives you +2, so this is overall. By this point, it has given you +2 on all primary caster skill checks for rituals. You can act as one of the secondary casters. You can attempt rituals that require a skill proficiency 1 stage higher than you actually have. You reduce the time it takes to perform a ritual. You can improve a failed roll by a secondary caster. And the final feat in Ritualist, if a ritual has a casting time measured in days, you can cast it in an equal number of hours. If this results in a ritual taking longer than 8 hours, you split the ritual between multiple days as normal for a ritual, which is perfect. If it takes a week, you can do it in a day. This is the most unbelievable power that the Ritualist could have had. 8th level ritual. Talk about it briefly. Control weather. You control the weather. You basically change the local area's temperature and precipitation between 2 to 5 miles, depending on how well you roll. You might cause a tornado that you don't control. It's mostly for story, but it's cool. Like if you want rain or snow, depending on the season, you can make it happen. 9th level ritual, Clone. Live in a new body when you die. Who wouldn't want to live forever? Or another ritual, I like this one a lot, Fantastic Facade. It's a plot device, but it's a cool one. You can change the appearance of a town and all its inhabitants. Permanent illusion. It's just awesome. So this has been my breakdown of rituals and how they work. I love the concept. There are a couple of issues I have with it, but I'll try to give alternatives to those in an upcoming video about rituals. Like, I really think it would be great to be able to have a demon pet or summon a few demons and let them loose on enemies, or even have like a bag o' demons. But we'll see what I can come up with. If you have ideas or have seen this done in homebrew, please let me know in the comments. I relish your attention. I'd love to brainstorm with you. If you want to make sure to catch the next video I make, hitting the subscribe button is a good way to bookmark the page so you can remember to check back later and see what I've done. And I want to say a big thank you to my patrons. You people are wonderful. and are the reason I can keep doing this. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down, so I know what videos are hit or miss. And remember, no one will ever be able to chop off both of their hands with a knife. Believe me, I checked.